YouTube, how the duck you doing? Duck Films here, and today we're diving deep into everything behind Invisible Woman. Now there's a whole bunch of other guides on YouTube that talk about Invisible Woman. For the most part, a lot of people just read the description of all the abilities, and if you're familiar with any of my other guides, you know that's not the case. With that being said, I'm here to give you real stats, actually useful tips, and even better tricks that you can use right away in your matches to quickly climb. And of course, if you find this video helpful in any way, shape, or form, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. But without further ado, I hope you sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. So getting started with Invisible Woman, she has to have some type of invisibility, and that comes into play with her passive ability, Covert Advance. Now this ability, it lets her go invisible and starts healing after disengaging from combat. But how long does it actually take to go invisible? Well, once you're out of combat, it takes roughly about 5 seconds, give or take. Of course, ping is also a factor, but for the most part, it's usually 5 seconds. And the healing that you get from it is about 25 HP per second during the invisibility. But something you have to remember or take note of is that if you start shooting or use any ability, the invisibility breaks and the healing stops immediately. Now here's a simple yet efficient tip. If you're low on health and you need to heal quickly, disengage, wait about 5 seconds and watch your health recover. Because you have to remember, in Marvel Rivals, there's no general passive ability where you slowly gain HP, so you really want to use your passive ability to the fullest of potential. Now, Invisible Woman also has a super useful movement ability, and that's with her jump ability, Veiled Step. Her Veiled Step ability creates a force field that instantly turns her invisible when she double jumps. So basically, go in any movement direction, whether that be straight, backwards, left, or right, press your jump button once, then rapidly press that same button twice. Now, this ability has a 6-second cooldown, so don't spam jump unless you really need it. Now this ability is very crucial to her because you don't need to wait the 5 seconds to start healing from her passive, because the Veiled Step will automatically trigger her passive healing immediately. Again, this is something to be very mindful of. Jumping straight into her primary fire or projection. Now let me tell you something, this tool, this ability, this mode of fire is extremely, and I mean extremely versatile. These orbs not only pierce enemies, they also heal allies and bounce off surfaces. It's kind of like a boomerang in a way. They can travel up to 30 meters, and they also hit targets twice. Again, kind of like a boomerang. So first, by throwing out your orb projection, either the first ally or the first enemy it hits will either heal or damage them, but it will also come back towards you, hitting that person or whatever a second time. If it hits, say an enemy, it does 20 damage per pass. So hitting an enemy with both passes would deal a total of 40 damage. Now when it comes to healing, the healing is about 46 HP per pass, and if you were to get the second pass on your ally as well, it would be a total of 92 HP. Now when using your primary attack, if you find yourself in a sticky situation of having to duel an enemy, instead of aiming directly at the enemy, try to aim at the ground near an enemy's feet when dueling to increase your chances of hitting both on the way out and back. Because it is a projectile, you kind of have to predict it, so usually aiming at the ground or at a wall will give you a guaranteed hit. Now let's talk about her secondary or alternative fire attack. Now in my opinion, this is probably one of the coolest abilities in the entire game. I don't know why, I just think it's really cool. Now this secondary fire is titled Guardian Shield. It generates a protective barrier around an ally. It blocks up to 300 damage and heals nearby allies for 60 HP per second. Not only does it heal your allies, it also slows enemies who pass through it. You can reposition the shield freely, but once it breaks or you retract it, the cooldown depends on how much HP it had left. And if it's completely broken, that timer will be a 6-second cooldown. Now you can recall the shield if you press F on your keyboard, which is the default keybind. If you're on controller, I'm sorry, I don't know what the button is for you, but hopefully someone in the comments can let you know. Now one of her first abilities is PSIONIC VORTEX. It creates a swirling energy field that pulls in enemies and deals 35 damage per second over 4 seconds, so that totals about 140 damage. It has a maximum range of 80 meters and a 12-second cooldown. Now while it does have a pull effect, enemies can walk out pretty easily, so time it well to maximize damage. And to get the maximum damage out of it, I find it quite useful to pair it with our next ability, and that is Force Physics. Force Physics allows you to either push or pull enemies within 30 meters, dealing 55 damage either way. Now the pull effect range varies from 4 to 7.5 meters. Of course, all of this depends on whether the enemy is moving toward or away from you, and the push effect knocks enemies back up to 50 15 meters. Now here's a pro tip and something that I find rather interesting. Jumping actually makes this ability stronger against you. What I mean by that is that if you're facing an invisible woman and you end up jumping, you're either going to get pulled directly into the enemy team or you're going to end up getting knocked back to Narnia. So something you should just be aware of. Now staying on the topic of her force physics ability, let me tell you, this ability is extremely useful. And if you're playing Sue Storm or Invisible Woman, here's some more ways you can be using it. Now we all know that Winter Soldier has a hook that allows you to hook enemies into your team. Now, in a way, you can sort of use Invisible Woman's force physics in a way that's similar to Winter Soldier, by hooking enemies into your team or just forcing enemies into a very bad position for themselves. And trust me, it's hilarious pulling enemies out of position that ended up thinking they were perfectly safe because there wasn't a Winter Soldier on the team. This ability is also extremely useful when you're getting chased or dived, and you need more escape from just her passive and jump ability. What I would do if an enemy is jumping on you, let's take for example Black Panther. Black Panther is going out his way to dive onto you. The second you see him dash towards you, immediately use your force physics to push him outwards. This knocks him back about 15 meters like I previously stated. From there, you can immediately use your double jump, or if you feel like you can survive, for 5 seconds out of combat, then of course go into your passive if possible. But most of the time, you're just going to want to force physics push them away, then double jump. Going for the passive rather than the double jump is very risky. And you can pretty much use this ability combo for any character that's diving you, but it's just some information that I think you should know. Now, believe it or not, even though Invisible Woman is a strategist, she actually has a very good melee ability. After 2 consecutive melees, with each melee being 30 damage, the 3rd consecutive hit will actually do more damage. It does a total of 50 damage, as well as it knocks enemies back and has a slightly longer range than the other 2 previous melees. This is an extremely important tool when you have enemy combatants on you and you're trying to survive and fight for your life. As most of the time as a strategist, it's always better to play for your life rather to just heal a teammate until you end up dying. Now let's talk about her ultimate ability, Invisible Boundary, or as I like to call it, the Thunderdome. Now let me tell you, this ability right here is insane. But her ultimate Invisible Boundary creates a large dome that makes allies inside of it invisible and heals all the allies within it for 250 health per second. Again, this ultimate ability is insane. Now, not only that, enemies can only see you if they actually step inside of the boundary or dome, but you and your teammates can shoot freely from within. You can see all enemies outside of the boundary and dome, and again, it's just a super insane ability to have in the game. Now, here's my tip or suggestion when using her ultimate ability. You can use your Velvet Step while inside of the dome to become fully invisible and sneak out without being noticed. Say enemies go into your boundary, and they're looking for you, the main target or the source of their problems. Now, while you do have the 250 HP per second, that number still doesn't mean you're invincible. If you feel like your life is in danger, or if you feel like the enemies are really just going to clump on top of you, you can easily use your Velvet Step, otherwise known as your jump ability, to really get out of trouble and get out of harm's way. Now, trust me, doing this has saved me a lot of times. Since this character's release, I think this character has already quickly become one of my most played heroes, and let me tell you, this little thing has saved me countless of times. Now, just like every other character in the entire game, Invisible Woman also has a team-up ability, and that's with none other than Mr. Fantastic. As the team-up anchor or main source, Invisible Woman gets a 15% healing bonus for the entire season or, entire match, while Mr. Fantastic gets the active ability benefit. So if you're playing Invisible Woman, I encourage you to tell one of your teammates to hop on Mr. Fantastic so you both get that amazing team-up ability. And that's pretty much everything you need to know about Invisible Woman. Now, I hope this guide has helped you in any way, shape, or form to help you play her in a super effective manner. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button and share it with your friends, and maybe even considering subscribing for more hero guides or other more general Marvel Rivals guides, tier lists, or whatever. I appreciate each and every one of you for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one.